Imagine your darkest, most offensive internet jokes from the past decade suddenly blasting across national television just as you run for the U.S. Senate.
I mean, that is basically a nightmare scenario for, well, anyone who has ever spent time on a message board. Just your entire digital past violently colliding with your real-world present.
Right. And Graham Platner is living that exact nightmare right now in Maine. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today we are looking into Platner, a four-tour combat veteran running as a Democratic candidate for the U.S. Senate.
Yeah, he served in Iraq and Afghanistan, and his campaign just slammed into a massive brick wall because his political opponents unearthed his deleted Reddit account.
He posted under the name P. Hustle. And we are talking about an archive of over 1,800 posts spanning from 2009 all the way to 2021.
That is a massive digital footprint.
Huge. And the material in those posts is just packed with harsh slurs, extreme political labels, and this brutal mockery of a wounded U.S. soldier. So our mission today is to look past all the political shouting. We are going to unpack the conflicting narratives around his past and actually explore the science behind public apologies.
Which is fascinating because, 12 years of unfiltered anonymous internet activity is like digital archaeology. Every terrible comment gets dragged out of the past to paint a very specific picture.
Think about it for a second. Think about the worst, most cynical joke you ever typed out online. If someone pulled 5 of your absolute worst posts out of thousands, would those 5 posts truly define your character?
Well, his opponents are demanding he step down immediately. And frankly, when you look at the raw text of the most explosive posts, the anger makes complete sense.
Yeah, let's get right into the exact words causing the outrage. The centerpiece here is Platner's commentary on a video of PFC Ted Daniels.
Right. Daniels is a soldier who took 4 bullets during a firefight with the Taliban in Afghanistan in 2012.
And he earned a Purple Heart for that, because he moved out into the open specifically to draw enemy fire away from his unit. It is just an act of undeniable bravery.
Absolutely. Under normal circumstances, you would expect a candidate with Platner's military background to express, deep reverence for a fellow wounded veteran.
But he didn't do that at all.
No, he really didn't. Platner, posting his P-Hustle, watched the helmet cam video of this firefight and just clinically tore the soldier apart. He called Daniels a dumb mother effer.
Wow. Just completely ruthless.
Yeah, he wrote that the only reason Daniels survived his terrible tactical decisions was just poor Taliban marksmanship. He even went as far as to mock the wounded soldier's breathing, calling it fat-ass wheezing.
It is so jarring to hear a veteran speak about another veteran that way. Platner is a decorated veteran himself. How does someone who served 4 tours justify tearing down a fellow wounded soldier so ruthlessly?
Well, his opponents point to that as proof of his character, but the vitriol in the archive doesn't even stop with the military commentary.
Right. The data shows he used the word at least 18 times between 2013 and 2021, and he constantly weaponized the word gay as a derogatory insult.
The archive also has these deeply unsettling posts about animals, too.
Oh, right, the kettlebell thing.
Yeah. In one thread, a user asked how to humanely deal with mice. And Platner casually volunteered that he traps them and drops a 53-pound kettlebell on their heads to, end it quickly.
Just incredibly dark.
And in another thread, someone posted about their cat needing expensive surgery so its ribs wouldn't crush its heart. Platner just commented, why not just get a less effed up cat?
It's like a digital Jekyll and Hyde situation.
Yeah.
And we have to add the physical evidence to all this because opponents are pointing heavily to an SS Totenkopf tattoo that Platner had covered up.
Right, the skull and crossbones used by the Nazis. He claims it was a drunken mistake he made with his military buddies. He said they thought it was just standard aggressive infantry imagery, and he vehemently denies being a secret neo-Nazi.
But, come on. Even a drunken mistake with military buddies implies a certain comfort level with some incredibly dark symbols. You don't just accidentally get an SS tattoo.
That is a completely fair point. And it is exactly why his political opponents refuse to let the issue go. When you stack up the slurs, the mockery of a Purple Heart recipient, the animal cruelty jokes, and the tattoo cover-up.
The narrative seems totally clear-cut.
Exactly. It paints a portrait of a highly toxic personality. But the mechanism behind that toxicity is where Platner's defense really complicates the entire story.
Because he doesn't really try to justify the words, does he? He just points straight to his heavy combat deployments.
Correct. Platner argues that his 4 tours as a Marine infantryman left him with profound PTSD and severe depression. The infantry operates in this incredibly crude, high-stress environment.
Right, where you're constantly surrounded by violence and death.
Exactly. So dark, offensive humor basically functions as a psychological survival mechanism. It is how soldiers process trauma when standard emotions just become too overwhelming.
So it functions like a digital exhaust valve. The pressure of combat trauma builds up, and the brain needs a way to vent it.
Yeah, and Platner argues that when he returned to civilian life, he carried that toxic communication style straight onto the internet. He was using shock value to numb the trauma.
He actually told a reporter that his posts were just shitposting. He was throwing rhetorical grenades into online conversations just to get a reaction.
Right. Opponents look at these posts and see a dangerous extremist who degrades women, minorities, and wounded soldiers. Platner's defense is essentially that he is a damaged veteran who used the ugliest internet vernacular to blow off steam.
Which really forces voters to ask if trauma is a valid excuse for 12 years of toxic behavior.
That's a tough question.
It is. But here's where the political narrative of Platner as a clear-cut villain hits a massive wall.
Yeah, because if he's just a hateful bigot, how do you explain the rest of the 1,800 posts?
Exactly. Progressive sources actually went in and analyzed the full 12 years of data, and the math completely contradicts the image of a right-wing extremist. We are talking about a totally different picture here.
The broader posting history reveals a really relentless defense of marginalized groups. He spent a massive amount of time aggressively shutting down users who were sharing Islamophobic propaganda.
And he fiercely called out U.S. atrocities in the Middle East, right? He expressed deep sympathy for Afghan civilians who were caught in the crossfire.
He did. The wildest part of this isn't just the slurs, it's the fact that he was dropping these horrific insults while simultaneously defending universal health care, climate change action, and LGBTQ rights.
Wait, really?
Yeah, he wrote very movingly about a gay Marine who was forced to hide his sexuality. He is essentially weaponizing 4chan-style vulgarity to defend left-wing causes.
That is such a fascinating paradox.
It is. He even warned people about organized neo-Nazi groups operating in New England, telling other users to stop treating them like harmless internet trolls.
Oh, and didn't he go after someone posting fascist patches?
Yeah, when one user posted a patch associated with an authoritarian regime, Platner fired back. He said he would make sure to post tactical gear with swastikas, and then just say, hey bro, it's just gear. He was actively fighting against fascist imagery online.
Which totally scrambles the political lines. It's a political Rorschach test. Opponents see a dangerous extremist, and defenders see a radicalized but principled veteran.
And his stance on firearms complicates the picture even further. He is a passionate gun enthusiast, but he was a member of the Socialist Rifle Association. He views the Second Amendment through a distinctly leftist lens.
Which represents a major departure from traditional gun rights arguments, right?
Completely. Instead of focusing purely on individual liberty, the focus is often on community defense. Platner strongly argues that rural voters need guns specifically to protect themselves from fascists and from a police force he does not trust.
He actually believes any federal ban on semi-automatic rifles would disastrously turn innocent, marginalized citizens into criminals. So his deployments didn't just give him PTSD, they radicalized him against the entire political system.
Yeah, he even called himself a socialist and a communist in some posts, saying he realized the wars only generated profits for defense contractors while killing his friends. He refuses to fit neatly into any standard political box.
Opponents cherry-pick the ugliest language to create a simple story of a bigot. But defenders point to his overarching progressive principles to paint a picture of a traumatized veteran who just sees the world without any polite filters.
Which brings up the big question for voters. You have to weigh the method against the message.
Right. If a candidate supports progressive causes but uses toxic internet troll language to defend them, does the context actually matter to voters? Or do the ugly words just drown out the message?
In modern political warfare, nuance usually gets slaughtered first, which makes his reaction to the scandal the most revealing part of this entire situation.
Because when a digital firestorm of this magnitude hits, the crisis communication playbook is basically written in stone. An entire public relations industry exists just to guide public figures through this kind of intense backlash.
Oh, you know the drill. You issue the somber Notes app statement on social media, you sit down for a solemn interview, you express profound regret, and you promise to do better.
But Platner completely threw out that traditional crisis management playbook. And what is incredible is that his refusal to apologize might actually be backed up by science. Let's look at the data behind public apologies.
Yeah, we actually have hard data on the mechanics of public forgiveness. There is a 2023 academic study from the City University of New York that surveyed people specifically on social media crises and apologies.
They wanted to find out what audiences actually value, right? Like why some apologies save careers and why others just completely fail.
Exactly. And the statistics are super revealing. The study found that 58% of people say a commitment to action is the single most important part of an apology.
So people want to see the mechanism of change. They want to know exactly how the person is going to fix the damage, rather than just hearing them say they feel bad.
Right. But the flip side of that CUNY data is what challenges traditional PR the most. The study also found that 58% of people say the speed of the apology is the least important factor.
Which goes against every instinct a corporate PR team has. The standard move is to rush a statement out within hours to control the narrative.
It really is. But the psychology here shows that rushing an apology often exposes it as a calculated, insincere maneuver. The audience can detect the legal team approval process behind the words.
When an apology feels like a hostage video, it lacks authentic accountability.
Exactly. Voters and consumers care far less about how quickly you apologize and far more about whether your actions reflect genuine transparency.
And this explains Platner's strategy perfectly. If the data says voters want a commitment to action, is Platner's action simply standing his ground and refusing to back down?
It seems like it. When he was confronted by a Fox News reporter in person, outside a market near his home, he did not grovel at all.
Yeah, the reporter shoved a microphone in his face and asked if he regretted the post about the wounded veteran, and Platner stood his ground and completely refused to apologize.
He called the attack slanderous. He pointed out that many of his own friends hold Purple Hearts and were wounded in combat. He told people they should read the 1,800 posts in context, framing them as obvious dark humor.
And then he basically just got in his truck and drove away.
Yeah. His refusal to apologize is his commitment to action. In a highly polarized political ecosystem, issuing a traditional apology is often viewed as weakness. It's seen as capitulation to the opposing party's outrage machine.
Platner's taking a massive gamble here.
It is an unprecedented political wager. He is betting that the electorate is completely exhausted by polished politicians who speak in focus-grouped platitudes.
He believes that voters in today's cynical climate actually prefer raw, flawed authenticity over a perfectly scripted fake apology. He is wagering that voters will look at a guy who admits he has PTSD, admits he uses dark humor, and refuses to bend the knee, and they will actually respect him for it.
Even if that authenticity is deeply ugly at times. From a strategic standpoint, this approach has profound dual effects. It gives his critics unlimited ammunition. They will continuously point to his lack of remorse as proof that he lacks empathy and is unfit for office.
No.
Yet, for a specific block of voters who inherently distrust the entire political apparatus, his refusal to sanitize his digital history acts as a credential of honesty.
He is forcing the public to confront the raw reality of a radicalized combat veteran without the buffer of a PR filter. It is a high-stakes test of the modern electorate. Can you survive a digital footprint this messy if you simply refuse to act ashamed of it?
It really challenges our entire cultural understanding of digital permanence and public redemption. The internet never forgets, but human beings are naturally contradictory and evolving.
Which goes far beyond one Senate race in Maine. We all exist in the exact same unforgiving digital ecosystem as Graham Platner. Every casual comment, every bad joke, every exhausted midnight rant is permanently recorded, logged, and waiting in the code.
Platner's situation proves that our digital scars do not fade. They just sit dormant until someone decides to dig them up. It forces us to figure out how to reconcile permanent digital records with the messy reality of trauma and personal growth.
And that leaves us with a final lingering thought for you to process long after this deep dive ends. Think back to the image of your own worst jokes blasting across a television screen. If every stray thought we ever typed becomes a permanent, unerasable public record. Wait, let me rephrase that. If everything we ever post becomes a permanent public record, what does that actually mean for the future of leadership? Will we only be governed by people who have lived perfectly filtered, cautious, terrified lives? Or will society eventually have no choice but to accept leaders who refuse to apologize for their raw, unfiltered humanity?